Good evening. This is Quintus Curtius, and welcome back to the podcast. It's been some weeks since I've last done a podcast, and the reason is simply because I really have not had much to say. And I subscribe to the old adage that when you don't have anything to say, it's better to say nothing at all. So that's why I've withheld my vocal cords for a few weeks to allow myself time to kind of get impressions collected for a new podcast. And I think I've got one tonight. And I wanted to talk about, or at least the title of this podcast is going to be, Never Mind What Other People Think. What do you think? Now you may ask yourself, what does this mean? What is the meaning of this podcast? Why would you want to make a podcast on this sort of a subject? And it occurred to me that far too often we base our opinions and we base our judgments not on our own estimates and our own considerations and our own conclusions and evaluations, but rather on the judgments and estimations and evaluations of others. Now, you may say to yourself, well, I don't do that. All my opinions I've arrived at on my own. All of them belong to me. All of them are my own. All of them have been crafted and hatched in my mind of my own accord. And you may be right. But I think if you examine this fact, you may find that very often your opinions are not really your own. You may find that they are not contrived, informed by you alone. You may find, in fact, that what you have done is absorb the opinions and judgments of others, whether in your reading or through listening to the media or listening to other people or through some other method of exposure. And I say this because I think that having independent thoughts, having your own opinion about important issues, is a critical step along the way to independence of mind. Independence of mind. Because when you really think about it, when you really are honest with yourself, we read famous books and we listen to news reports and we examine issues and testimonies about this and that, and then we come about our own judgments and conclusions. But when you really think about it, and this is where you really have to be honest with yourself, you probably would be forced to admit more often than you would care to that what you really do is imbibe and absorb the opinions of other people around you, rather than base your own thoughts and conclusions on rational consideration and analysis and weighing of all the factors. I mean, you don't do that. People don't really do that unless they make a conscious effort to do that. And I'll tell you why this is so important to me, because this sort of thing became very, very apparent to me when I first began to write, and I started to try my own hand at the Latin translations that I've been involved in laboriously for some years now. And when I would come to the point, I would do the translations first, and I would write the forewords and the introductions last, because I wanted to give myself time and space and presence of mind to weigh all the different factors and to come up with decisions and opinions and thoughts that were new and relevant. Because your readers, this is one thing that I learned, your readers, they don't want to hear what other people think. They want to know what you think. They already know what the other guy thinks. They already know what some other writer thinks or says. They don't care about that. They're reading your books because they want to know what you think. What do you think? Never mind what the other guy thinks. What do you think? And I think taking this step to really putting pen to paper and writing your own thoughts, really committing yourself forcefully and publicly to some opinion, is a real important step along the road to self-confidence and independence of mind. Because if you can't do that, can you really be said to be independent? Can you really be said to be a person who's thinking for himself? When you've done the homework, when you've done the research, when you've done the homework, when you've done the heavy lifting, when you've done the brute grunt work, you've earned the right to give your own opinion. So give it. Do it. When you have a shot on goal, take it. God damn it. People don't give a shit what someone else thinks. They want to know what you think. What do you think? And it occurs to me, or it seems to me, that we far too often hide behind the opinions of others instead of enunciating and articulating our own opinions, our own thoughts, our own words. Far too often we rely on the thoughts and words of others. And I think that while your first impulse may be to deny this, I think on further reflection you may realize that it does have some truth to it. It does. So when I was engaged and involved in the composition of these books, of these translations, I would do the forwards and the translation. I would do the forwards and the introductions last, because I wanted to give my own opinions. Because I early along made the decision that I've earned the rights to voice my own thoughts about these classic works. I don't give a shit what somebody else thinks. I mean, I think you should read what other people think. I think you should obviously take into account and weigh all the different opinions you can. But at the end of the day, you have to say what you think. You have to go on record. You have to put your balls on the line. You have to put your ass on the line and say what you think. What do you think? And I think if you do that, if you actually put in the effort and honestly and sincerely do that, you'll be surprised. You'll be very, very surprised at the extent of your own creativity. You'll be very shocked about the insights that you can come about just when you marinate and you combine your own experience and your own judgments with those of the great minds of the past. And you may be surprised to find out that you can have something yourself to contribute to the discussion. You may be surprised to find out that you do have something to offer. You do have something to contribute, because every man, every woman has something to offer. Because everyone brings a different set of life experiences to the table. Everyone brings a different set of life experiences to the table, and everyone has something to offer. And I really do believe that. And what I'm trying to articulate in this short podcast is, don't be afraid to say what you really think. Don't be afraid to get it out there. I just think that far too often people are hesitant, and they hem and they haw and they hide behind these barricades of other people's opinions, because they're deep down, I think they're insecure, they're afraid, they're timid about actually going out there. They might be inhibited by the idea that, well, so many other learned individuals have weighed in on this writer. What could I myself possibly have to contribute to this discussion? Well, the answer is a great deal. The answer is a great deal, because that's what literature is. That's what literature is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a repository of ideas. It's supposed to be a forum, in some ways, for sincere and hardworking and honest people. Notice I did not say frivolous dorks who do not want to do the work. Because again, to get to the table of offering an opinion, you have to do the work. You don't just get to stroll in and start shooting your mouth off. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sincere, honest individuals who have done the homework, that want to offer their thoughts. And that is what they should be doing. That's what they should be doing. So the point of all this is, and I think this carries over into other fields of life as well, if you know something, if you have knowledge about a job or a trade or a type of work or a field of interest or an area of interest or topics or whatever, weigh in on it. Open your mouth and say something. Open your mouth and say something. Do something. Because all the knowledge in the world is of no use if it stays behind furrowed brows, wrinkled brows, and is never communicated, is never transferred to other worthy minds. You have to get the information out there. You have to do something. You have to go on record, and you've got to grab a hold of your balls, and you've got to do something. So, those are my thoughts on never mind what other people think. What do you think? So maybe you should consider that. Maybe you should take that under advisement the next time you read a book that's a classic or that you feel is something significant. Put it down, set it aside, and formulate your own thoughts. And again, don't regurgitate, don't masticate, don't simply repeat what other people have said. Bring your own life experience to the party. Bring your own life experiences to the table. Bring your own knowledge to the table. And actually tell us what you think.